We've heard a lot about how the pandemic has hurt the airline industry as people canceled travel plans to hunker down at home. Camila Apablaza knows the impact all too well. The Regina woman says she had her dream job as a flight attendant and later as a flight director with Air Transat. But with air travel mostly grounded to a halt, so is her work. Now she's on a mission to bring awareness to the Canadian government with a plea for help. Camila joins me now from her current home in Toronto. Camila, give us an idea of the before and after and how this pandemic has affected your job.
Thank you, Sam. So before last year, March, April, I was working my absolute dream job. I was in a company that was absolutely booming. Aviation was doing really, really well. And everything kind of came screeching to a halt, and I've been laid off now since April, along with the majority of flight attendants in Canada. Actually, the numbers right now are quite staggering with how many people are not working due to the current restrictions that we have in place and the current situation that travel really is just in right now.
So what are you doing to get attention for people in the aviation industry?
So there's been petitions, there's been rallies, but recently there was a campaign that was started by, it's a group of people that put together Save Canadian Aviation. And so they started a campaign, and it's to draw attention directly to our Canadian government and to Justin Trudeau, asking him, can you hear us? At this point, can you hear our pleas? Because we feel in the aviation sector that we've almost been forgotten. We've kind of been left to the side, and there hasn't been any specific plan. There hasn't been any actual sectoral aid. And right now, the thousands of unemployed Canadians, pilots, airport employees, everyone that's affected directly by this, we just feel like we've been put aside and forgotten, and that we are really worried mostly if we're even going to have jobs to return to when life as we knew it starts again and when people start to travel.
You were saying you were hoping for attention, but what do you hope to see happen within the airline industry in the year ahead as we move forward through this pandemic?
I mean, I'd love to see people be able to travel as soon as possible once it's safe enough to, and once they feel that they're able to. But right now, what we understand is that it's not easy for airline to just resume, or air travel to just resume, sorry. But what needs to happen is sectoral aid to promise us that these jobs are going to be available. Canada is one of the only actual country in the G7 that hasn't offered sectoral aid to aviation. My worry right now for myself is when people are ready to take those vacations, when they're ready to travel again, is my job still going to be around? Am I going to be able to take back off where I was before this all started? And Canadian aviation right now is really, really hurting. It's struggling. And without that aid, there might not be the choice for Canadian travelers to pick a Canadian carrier to take them away once they're ready to travel. And that's what we need the government to really step up on, and to make the promise that they're going to invest in the Canadian aviation sector.
On a personal note, Camila, are you able to wait for a job when this is over? Like, how do you handle this? I know you're wondering if you're going to have a job, but can you wait for that job?
Well, I've tried to apply for other work, just to give you an idea. And the fact of the matter is, I want my job back. It was my passion. It was my career. It was everything that I dreamed of. And having that ripped from under you is very difficult to deal with on its own. But also what's difficult is that it's very hard right now to find employment in anything. I was able to find a part-time job in retail, and I was actually let go from that as well since Toronto is in a full lockdown. So my biggest concern is I invested a lot of myself into this. And I mean, I'm just a flight attendant. I can't even speak for pilots who put themselves through years and years of school to receive their qualifications. And they actually right now might lose those qualifications if they're unable to fly. So my options, I would hope, would be that my job is promised to me. Of course, other people are having to reconsider their entire career path and take on something completely different that they never would have imagined, just because right now it's not promised to us, and we don't know what the future of our jobs looks like at all.
Camila, thanks so much for sharing your story with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Camila Apablaza is a grounded flight attendant originally from Regina. We found her at her current home in Toronto.